what happened during that first 30 days is my why changed. So, and not related to the joint aches and the feed and the clear mind. My why changed because I had this freedom.
Joyce, how did you find Carnivore?
Well, I think I should start with thanking you for your channel. You know, it's really a great resource to help people. I think demonstrating the benefits, which are so different, and some that are the same across many people, but demonstrating the benefits of an animal-based diet. The interviews, the videos, and I'm now watching them every day. If I can keep up with you, I don't know, but some of them are so profound and, meaningful to me, and I bet meaningful to the community, and sometimes very hilarious. So thank you for those as well. So I want to thank you. And then I want to tell you just a tiny bit about myself before I tell you how I found Carnivore. So I think of myself as lazy, and I'm not much of a joiner. So if there's a community, and there's lots of great communities, I don't get on Facebook and join the group, or go to a meetings, or none of that. It's just not me. So I was the toddler that would tell my mother I'll do it myself. And so that's really at least the way I approach a lot of things. It works out really good at work. I'm all for process improvement, known for that, and being the starter person and helping move things forward that way. So that kind of might help understand, I'll say, the process that it took me to get to Carnivore. Uh, so when it comes to eating now, I eat for nourishment. And that means I eat when I'm hungry and stop when I'm full, but I don't count anything. Macros, carbs, I don't know, anything like that. And now I only occasionally weigh myself. Really, I say my clothes tell the story. Um, and you'll understand a little bit about that when I talk about the not very long process. So I'm also not a doctor person. I I just don't go. I don't go for regular checkups. I don't get the flu shot every year. I will go if I, bust an arm or something. I will go get those things taken care of. Um, so, uh, but I want to say that while I have been blessed with really good health, I haven't walked through the raindrops exactly untouched. But, but really, overall, I'm in. I have not had anything to complain about as far as overall health. So, in 2018, uh, I was listening to Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager is a conservative, religious talk show host whom I grew up, well, part of the time, grew up listening to him on my folks' radio. But of course, I was listening to podcasts then. I'd moved past the radio. Podcasts are good for dog walks. And one day he has on Vinnie Tortorich, who I'm sure you've heard of in the past, Mr. No Sugars, No Grains. And he fascinated me. He had his own podcast, daily podcast. And I thought, oh, more fodder, right? More interesting things to listen to. And then I read his book, uh, which I won't say is a tome for animal based, but for no sugars, no grains. And that seemed to make a lot of sense to me. Uh, and he introduced me to Ken Berry and Nina Teicholz and Jason Fung. And I'll say those were the people who I sought out to listen to at the time, 2018, and read books by, especially Ken Berry, right? Lies My Doctor Told Me. So if you think about who I was as a person or am as a person, not a doctor person, and hearing that and my general ideas about science, then I was able to put all those things together and it kind of made sense to me. So I remember it was May 1st, 2018, for two reasons. One, because I seem to start things on the first of whatever regularly. And I was 56 years old then. And I started my no sugars, no grains slash keto uh, way of eating. And my why then was my weight. So the way I'd managed my weight in the past, uh, I guess I'd never been, I don't know if I'd ever been obese, or what do they call that? Morbidly obese, but I certainly was overweight and overweight by my own standards. Whether those, and those, so whether those standards were reasonable or not, um, they were never body dysmorphia standards. I don't think my husband would have let me get there anyway, but so remember, I'm kind of lazy, right? So I wasn't going to be managing anything by keeping calorie counts, or in this case, macro counts. My policy was as low as I could go. So right, and remember, it was keto, so vegetables, low carb vegetables, meats, um, fats, etc. And I really liked the idea of the 18-6 fasting for two reasons. One was because, well, I could get up in the morning, I'd have more time to walk the dogs and skip my breakfast because, how important that is. So I was able to skip it on this way of eating. And then I could go the 6 hours of eating when I felt like it, which got easier and easier. And then I didn't eat late because I had been experiencing where if I ate late, and by late I mean like after 5 or 6 at night, I would feel like indigestion. I wouldn't sleep well. I've never been a poor sleeper. It just wouldn't be as good. And so I had already cut my eating time back to, I'll say old person eating, but it should be whatever works for different people. But apparently I was already there. So really, May 1st, 2018. And I remember because I was driving my son to school. I told him I was going to do that. Um, and so that's why I remember the date, because I did not document much. So less than 3 months it took me to go. Now I'm 5'2", not a tall person by today's standards. I didn't even get as tall as my mother. So I went from 159 pounds, my top weight ever. And I'm telling you that my why was my weight, because I was just floored. I didn't weigh that much when I was 9 months pregnant with my son. I didn't weigh that much. Nope. Down to 115 in less than 3 months, 44 pounds down. Yeah, I was never hungry. so, so that was really great, right? My why was achieved, basically. And so that would be about down to where I was in high school at the time, in high school. So I'll say my high school weight. And again, policy was as low as I could go. I had a lot of non-scale benefits, but I didn't know that was the case. Right. So remember, my why was I was fat. I felt fat. And I thought any problems I was having were old age or fat related. Right. So that was that was all I knew. And I assumed I knew what was right, because if you listen to the Eat Less, Move More, they were certainly wrong about the eat less, but I just figured I wasn't moving enough. And I did not have the energy I have now, but it was certainly better on keto. So I'll kind of get back to the non-scale benefits in a little bit. So then my diet change at that time and weight loss freaked my mother out. Now, she never said anything about when I was heavy, never said anything. It didn't bother her that I got thin. What it was the big weight loss, and that I wasn't eating what she expected as or assumed was a good diet. You mean never having a piece of toast? No more bagels? So it freaked her out to the point that she said, "You have to go have a physical." Of course, me, I'm like, "No." And she said, "Yes." So what am I going to do? She's my mom. She's not a young woman anymore. She's a little bit worried about her daughter. I understand. So I showed up at my doctor. Now, I hadn't been there for years. In fact, the last time I had been there, I had busted my ankle in up in the mountains. So so I did not weigh as much as I did when I started keto, when I'd seen him last. So, but I did weigh less, right? I was at about 115, and he did mention, hey, it was good that I'd lost the weight. I don't know what I weighed then, but I know I didn't weigh as much. So there was some difference. That then he had no curiosity about what happened. I think he thought I was eating less and moving more, right? What else was I doing? And all he had to say to me was, just keep it up. I said, okay, no worries, because I really didn't have in my mind that he had, if he didn't have any curiosity, I wasn't going to sit down there and school him on anything. That's for sure. So he did call a week later with my blood work and told me everything was okay. And I don't know what okay is because I don't have a copy of that. And because I know that the scale and ranges and all those things are, maybe I've heard from some people that the labs base it on people that are local, and some of the ranges have changed over time. I don't know what that was, but I do know that my mom felt better because look, the doctor said I was fine. And that was the last time she ever said anything about that. So I'm really grateful for that. That was worth it for me. So then in 2020, I was sent home to work remote. Now I can't say I was unhappy about that, although the reason for the world wasn't so good, but yeah, but I was pretty happy to be home. We had just started a kitchen remodel. And so that meant we were eating out a lot and it was good timing because we were there, I was there. And so the contractor could come and go easily. And they were very respectful when I was working, not, knocking out walls while I was in a meeting or something. So that worked out pretty good. And I was able to stick to the 18-6 and able to stick to the keto, although I'm sure I was ingesting a lot more seed oils and things, although I wasn't quite as tuned into that at the time. But I'm sure I was ingesting a lot of junk in general. Although I tried to stay to keto. So if we were going to get a burger, then I was still having the meat and the cheese, no buns, sort of thing. And then it was mostly keto. So I was having, the lettuce wrap version. And I did that and was successful really until the beginning of 2023. And the beginning of 2023, what happened, what my excuse was, so I changed roles at work into a highly stressful role. Um, and at the same time, my mother, we had a family issue with my mom, having some troubles. She'll be 88 in about a month. So she's not too young. And so I had a lot of stress related to that. And I I feel as if the stress I wasn't able to handle it basically. And so I used food to soothe myself. And so I went and I was still having chocolate. It was just a couple of pieces of dark chocolate every day, but then it became more and more, or a couple cookies from my husband's cookie stash, or whatever the case may be. And so I'll say I still had bunless burgers because I was completely converted. as far as the bread went, but so I still wasn't having bagels. But I was definitely the carb creep, as well as the not paying attention to the quality of the food. And I know my weight was creeping up. I could feel it. My clothes tell the story. They got tight again. Um, but I didn't gain the full amount back. Now, I can't tell you how much I gained because I didn't weigh myself once again. But I knew that I went from one size pants to the slightly bigger, the next size up, and they were tight. And that's when I said, okay, my why again is my weight. And I said, I got to do something. And by then I had found your channel. I'd been listening to Dr. Barry again, who, by the way, was focusing more on ketovore and carnivore. Uh, and while I wasn't listening to Vinnie Tortorich any longer, I found Anthony Chafee, who, because I have some background in science, I was able to it made a lot of sense to me. And I was able to kind of convert what he said in my mind to why I might have been found myself struggling emotionally when I had a difficult time. So, I mean, it was really great to go from 2018 to 2023 without a lot of emotional distress. And if I hadn't changed roles, I may have only had the stress with my family, and that may have been I could have handled that. But I'm actually grateful for that horrible role at work because that tipped me over into finding something that would provide me what I'll tell you what it is when I get there. Set me up for where I am now, I'll say. So 2024, the beginning of 2024, I was able to get out of that role. I had to stay in it 12 months to stay where I was working before I could switch roles again. So beginning of 2024, switched roles, and now I'm in a very good place at work. Again, listening to a lot of Ken Berry, Anthony Chafee, and you're constantly listening to your interviews. Like I said, that is a big plus. It's people from all walks of the world having all different kinds of problems. Most of them not problems I never had, but the way their approaches were, the ideas they have. So that was actually very helpful for me. And I decided on my birthday this year, which was September 1st, like I said, the first of something, right? Um, that I would flip over and try carnivore, or I'll say maybe it's more ketovore because it's not just meat and salt or meat, period. Um, so I started with that ribeye on my birthday. We all went out. There's no way I could finish that ribeye. Couldn't to save my life. I couldn't have finished it. And so, I had my son. I was a grown man, and my husband. They finished it, but my why was the same. Right, it was still my weight. And this time I said, okay. After listening to all the people on Dave Mack's channel, I'm gonna measure the changes. And I know from work you don't manage what you don't measure typically. So I started a journal, just an electronic journal, writing things down, right? And I switched to, I'll call it about 95% animal based. That's animal meats and fish. I'm not, so I've changed a little bit of that over time as far as what meats. But it's all meats, and then I have a little onion, a little garlic, salt, pepper, sometimes some other spices. I do drink coffee, and I do drink tea, although the tea's herbal tea, because if I drank tea on top of coffee, I would never sleep. Um, so I guess I call that animal based to people who ask me, but really it's ketovore, and explaining that to people sometimes confusing, right? So I'm still as low as I could go. The difference is now what I'm journaling is the change. Okay. I did a days 1 through 30, and then I did days 60 and on. So 1 through 30, I promised myself 30 days, told my family 30 days. They could expect that I wasn't going to touch anything in the kitchen, or that they would try to offer me um, that wasn't animal based. So here's what I experienced again on this mostly animal based diet. First off, my cravings in the beginning were on and off. And that would be cravings for anything that I had been eating before, which would have been some um, cookie or yogurt with even high fat yogurt with sugar in it. To me, that's how off track I had gotten. I did have nausea for several days in the evenings, and I don't know why that is. Maybe it was my body adjusting to the change, because now I was having a lot more fat, and I I didn't stop eating a lot of protein, but I was having a lot more fat and essentially almost no carbs. So I wasn't able to eat as much volume as I was eating before, and I didn't beat myself up about it. I just figured, well, this stuff feels very heavy to have this much fat. Um, so I'm not going to worry about it. We'll just see what happens. And then my non-scale changes, because I wrote them down this time, that were, I'm sure, directly related, because the weight loss didn't come off as fast as the no joint aches. So the fingers, the wrists, the elbows, but mostly the knees and my back. Now, none of that crippled me, but one of the fun changes was, screwing the top off of something. I had gotten to the point where I thought, okay, old lady, got to get the opener thing. So I get the fancy OXO opener thing, and I'm unscrewing the top with. Now, one day it was dirty in the sink, and I just did it with my hands, and I was like, it's only been a couple days. Is that what was happening with my hands? Because my wedding ring still comes off. It has always come. When we got married 34 years ago, the jeweler told me, "Oh, you'll be back." Everybody gets their ring sized up. But even when I was at my heaviest, my rings didn't get sized up. My fingers stayed skinny. Don't ask me. But the movement to open the lid, that really floored me. And then after a few weeks, my mind cleared up. And I remember my mind clearing up before, but I don't. And I remember the mid-afternoon. Now, I didn't have a terrible crash. I wasn't falling asleep at my computer or anything, but I did feel a low in the afternoon. That was all gone. So this is a few weeks after I changed. So a few weeks after my birthday. My teeth were smooth all the time, which is when I'd heard somebody else say that, I was kind of surprised. And then when I experienced it, I, I was not surprised any longer. I decided not to be surprised by different people's healings, because everyone's different. So, okay. My feet didn't bug me. So what was happening, and I don't remember ever happening before. So when I was at my heaviest, I could get out of bed. My feet didn't hurt. But here I wasn't at my heaviest, but I would get out of bed, and for a few minutes as I was walking on my feet, they kind of hurt. And I was still chalking it up to old age, right? So now they don't bug me at all. I get out of bed, no problem. Uh, so the dogs sleep on my side of the bed on the floor, and I don't make them move. I just maneuver over them, because I figure I'm going to keep up my balance and learn to learn to get around obstacles. And it's really nice that my feet don't hurt. Just saying. What happened during that first 30 days is my why changed. So, and not related to the joint aches and the feet and the clear mind. My why changed because I had this freedom that I had never had 100% before on keto. So I don't know what in my diet when I was eating keto flipped that switch. But my mind changed in two ways. One way, and I and believe me, I am communicating all this to my family now that I didn't before, especially so that they are comfortable with the weight loss, so they understand the other benefits, because they nobody is worried about anything but my whole health from their mind, right? So all the negative talk, get up, take a shower, give myself a hard time because I'd had a crappy day the day before, eating garbage, and I was gaining weight and feeling bad, and going on and on in my head, right? And then I'm going to do this. I'm going to stick to this. I'm going to be all that kind of, this is what I'm going to eat. This is when I'm going to eat it. Get out of the shower, get dressed and go to work, with a long commute to my home office. And then nothing, nothing stuck. And now none of that. I don't have that negative talk. Even just a couple days after I stopped eating the garbage food, it all went away. Now, yes, I am sticking to it, but there's no white knuckling, right? There's no, um, so another thing is the calling to me from the kitchen thing. So here's my office. I'm sitting in it now. I can walk around, go to the kitchen anytime I want. My husband, he's going to have a cake in there or a pastry or, well, I never was an ice cream person, ice cream or something, but nothing was calling to me anymore. Have a slice of cake. There's plenty of cake in there. There's a whole thing Daniel got. No problem. Oh my gosh, none of that. And I was floored. Now, I can't say that my husband or son understand that because they don't have that. Well, they don't have that part of the addiction, I'll say. They certainly like their sweets. They're not gaining weight and not the same, but they do not have the same mental challenge. Well, and I'm happy for them, really. So that was all gone. And I realized then and there in that first 30 days that I had to go longer because this was such a relief, really, for me. I felt like I was nourishing my body. I was able to support that nourishment without a struggle. And in fact, the next 60 to 90 days, my son joined me for 37 days, I think just to support me. So he's fit anyway. But I mean, it's hard not to be as young as he is, especially since he doesn't have any health challenges. But I think he did it just to support me. And that was pretty fun because then he would cook stuff. I didn't have to. So I really enjoyed that. Somehow, naturally, I went from 3 cups of coffee to two, and sometimes one, but most of the time two. And I think it's just I don't feel the afternoon slow, right? So I'm done with my 2 cups of coffee by 10:30 in the morning. If I have anything hot, it's hot water or hot herbal tea because I don't like to have the heater on. So it can get a little cool here. I swear it does get cool here where I live. um, so that's pretty. That was a pretty interesting note. So I'm still journaling during this time, just not as often. I'm weighing myself occasionally, um, but and I am certainly losing weight. I don't know where I started because it really took me a few weeks to get the courage to step on a scale. Isn't that silly? It's pretty silly. And of course, I'm back into the clothes I was in before, so
So at the moment, are you back to around 115
I'm
pounds?
116. Yeah, today I weighed myself for you
Thank
because
you.
because uh, I feel like my clothes fit really good. Um, I don't, my there's no roll over my pants, and I've I have to say, don't let anybody tell you, any woman who's postmenopausal, that you can't have a waist. I got my 24-inch waist back. I'm like, it's unbelievable. Um, so I changed out my coconut oil. I got rid of it from my coffee and used butter. So I heard, I don't know how many people doing that. And I like butter. Can't complain. And in fact, I don't know if that changed anything. I also dropped eating the plain yogurt. I used to like to eat plain yogurt with berries. That was like my dessert when I was keto. But I just don't feel the interest in eating it anymore. It doesn't. So when I say interest, when I look in the pantry, because I have some carnivore snacks in there and stuff like that, the meat that's a treat though, because those are expensive. But or if I look in the fridge, I eat cheese and I eat meat, bacon, eggs. Those are the things that I look at and go, yeah, I want to have that. Versus, yeah, I want to have plain yogurt. That's it. So I stopped getting that. My hunger signals are clearer now, where it was a bit of boredom or nerves and that sort of thing. Now, when I'm hungry, I know I'm hungry. Um, and I am eating a little more. I don't know if I'm, I don't think I'm under eating because I'm not an exercise freak, but I do move and I can talk about that. But yeah, I'm at 116. And I figure it lands where it lands. If I stay here, I don't care. Go up or down a little bit, I don't care. And I mentioned my grip strength is now, it's even better now. So that's good. So I put down some more non-scale changes. Um, so again, we had another family event. My aunt went into hospice and passed away. My mother's sister, who's a good deal younger than she is. And she was very beloved, and that was very tough to get my mom out there and all that stuff, since my mom is challenged physically now. So I I really felt that I was able to handle that, not just handle it for me, but help my mom handle it. Honestly, I felt so clear minded that I could express myself and what I knew was important to help. I'll say help my mom more than I needed, and that meant so much to me that I never want to go back. Never want to go back to that. Yep, I mentioned my body shape already. No more aches. Oh, one really fun thing is I can pop back up out of chairs and off the floor like it's nothing now. So I have to say that I'm really grateful. I'm always been pretty comfortable sitting crisscross on the floor, even when I was heavy. But getting up was difficult, especially when my joints were bugging me right. And I like that because I've got a couple big dogs and I like playing with them. And down there on the floor, we're all, a pack. It's a lot of silliness, but they're currently my children since mine are grown, right? So, um, and then I don't really have cravings for junk food anymore. Um, my husband we still have the cookies in the cabinet or the um, whatever kind of things that he and my son want to have there. In fact, it's Christmas time, and at Christmas time we always have C's candy. And my favorite was the peanut brittle. It's sitting up there on the top of the refrigerator now. It doesn't call me. I can watch them eat their 2 pieces a day because that's their rule. And honestly, it doesn't bug me one bit. I can smell it because what used to be one of my favorites, my husband was eating it, or yeah, one of them was eating it, and they had me smell it. I go, yeah, that smells like that. I remember that. Mouth didn't water. I was shocked. and and I didn't want to eat it. So I don't know why that is, but I can't complain about it. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't occasionally get bored and go poking around, right? And the policy is if I don't want to eat beef jerky or something like that, then I'm not truly hungry. And I learned from somebody on your site. I just grab this, and maybe it's the guy you do the Q&A with. I just take some salt and some of my Redmond's real salt and put it under my tongue.
Yeah, that sounds like Bob, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I tried the butter, but actually, I love butter, but I do not love it cold. I'm not eating the cold butter. Sorry. I find that unappealing. And I love fat now, but I like it rendered. So I'm not eating anything raw. So I think I mentioned I'm not an exercise person. I'm not a joiner. I don't go to a gym. But I mean, I do get physical exercise every day. And that's part of what I love about the dogs. I get out twice in the morning because I take them one by one, since together they outweighed me before and now they outweigh me even more. And although they're young, right, and very energetic, and they're being trained, and so I'm good with the jog walk now. So instead of just keeping them at heel in a walk, we can do a jog walk to get them going. And then we go at night as a family, we walk. So I get several outings, and then some of our hobbies like gardening and hiking and things like that uh, do help with activity. And then cleaning the house, which I hate, but I do. It is also a bit of an exercise, right? Uh, hey, moving the couch to vacuum under it's not a small feat. So
I'm
so I really,
shocked. I'm
yeah,
shocked.
shocked.
You've made me feel inadequate. I don't move my couch ever.
Oh well, no, I don't do it every time, but I do it. Yeah, and then my if my son's around, he gets all mad at me. Mom, you should have me move it.
So, like, the family's been pretty accepting of this. They're pretty down with it.
So I'd say the wider family is there's Joyce doing it herself again, whatever it is, and so I don't hear too much. Nobody now. My husband, because I have been talking about the benefits this time around, as I understood that they were related to the food, not the weight loss. Um, to me, that has made a big impression on him. I say that because he's also 62, my age, and he's starting to have some uh, joint aches that are, well. So he's had joint aches, but these ones are particularly disturbing because they're in his hands, and he loves to play piano. So he's starting to talk to me about, well, what would it mean for him to change the way he eats? And because it's not like he sees what I eat, but he wants it spelled out. So, okay, there's that. My son is very supportive. He understands that this way of eating is really clean and healthy. So for him, while he may not follow it necessarily, he understands. He likes to work out. He does like to work out. And so he will up his protein, and he's happy to eat fat, but he still eats the garbage. So just saying.
And have you had any feedback from friends? Like, anyone showed any interest at all?
Yeah. So I have a friend who is dieting now. It's a little complicated. She is. I'll say she's keto, um, and struggling with some health issues, but isn't interested in making that jump because in her mind it won't make a difference. So she's not willing to try it. And I do have some friends. One friend who made a change to keto when I was doing keto. So I was very grateful for that because she has type 2 diabetes, even though, tiny little thing that she is. Um, so I know that helped her a lot. Uh, and I have another friend who every time she sees me says, "Oh, you look good. I wish I could start that." But that's as far as it goes. So maybe someday she will feel differently about it. must not be bothering her weight, must not, or whatever it is, must not be bothering her enough. She certainly doesn't have the joint aches. So, I mean, I know she's about my height, and I know she weighs more than I did when at my top weight. So, I'm not sure she'll pick up on that. We'll see. But I have to tell you, a lot of people at my work are on the same keto slash carnivore kind of diet, it turns out, especially women.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting as well, that
When I
it's
said I was
mostly
having
women.
butter in my coffee, they're like, "Oh," and then all of a sudden there was this conversation about well, what we eat.
Nice. So regarding what you're eating, are you still kind of similar plan to when you were keto? Is it like 18-6, or are you doing more of an
Yeah.
intuitive kind of thing?
So it's more, well, yes, it's intuitive, but I still I still so it's probably close to 18/6, probably. I will adjust. So, and I'll say it's intuitive. When I'm hungry, I eat. But sometimes I like to wait for my husband, so I'll adjust. I'll adjust accordingly so that we can have a meal together when it's not the weekend. Um, yeah, and I'll say, like, for Thanksgiving, for example, I waited and just had that one meal instead of having two, or a meal and a snack. I just had that one meal, and then I just slathered the turkey in butter because otherwise I couldn't have eaten it.
Yeah, it's pretty dry, right?
Yeah, and tasteless.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Um,
It's tasteless.
y yeah. So I think, the thing that strikes me the most from what you were saying in your story is how the kitchen's not calling you.
Right.
And I think that bears emphasizing because you're in a position where it's really hard to resist the kitchen because you're working from home, like you're
Yep.
working next to the kitchen.
Yes, I am.
So, September 1st is, your start date.
Yep.
Um, that's coming up on what's that? September, October, November, December. So that's
Yeah.
coming up on 4 months, right?
Yep.
Um, so is it this eating is going to be the way forward? There's no going back.
Yeah, I did say that to my husband. I told him there's no going back. And then he said to me, "Never? Not even a bite? Not even the cheesecake you saw at such and such a place that reminded me of when we dated and went to a certain place that doesn't exist anymore and used to have cheesecake and coffee at 2 in the morning?" you know, and I said, "Yeah, I think never. I'm not going back." And the main reason is because I am able to cope with more than just food calling me from the kitchen.
Yeah. Wow, that's
Not food,
powerful.
garbage calling me from the kitchen.
Yeah, yeah. Air quotes food, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, Joyce, is there a way that people can get in contact with you? Do you have any social media or any way of reaching out?
So I would say my social media I use for my crafting and friends and family, but I have an email you can add to the YouTube if you want to. And if people want to ask questions, I'm happy to help them. I'm not a doctor, but then I don't really go to them either. So there's that.
Sure. I'll put your email in the show notes.
Okay.
Joyce, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really
Yeah.
appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you very much. And really the best to you. I'm going to keep watching and try to catch up on all all of your videos.